What's the most messed up thing you've seen on a Zoom class? Mrs. Denson was one of those high school teachers who clearly hadn't figured out online classes. She wasn't mean or anything, just old school and not great with technology. Half the time her mic wouldn't work, or her camera would freeze on some weird angle of her ceiling, or she'd spend 10 minutes talking to a black screen not realizing we couldn't see her. Everyone kind of dealt with it because she was genuinely trying, you know? She'd apologize when things went wrong and ask us to be patient while she figured out the buttons. One Monday morning started normal enough. She greeted everyone, reminded us about our weekly journal assignments, and launched into her usual lecture about the Boston Tea Party. About 20 minutes in, she got a phone call. We knew because she suddenly stopped mid-sentence and said, "Oh, hang on, kids," before standing up and walking away from her desk. She must have thought she muted herself and turned off the camera, but she didn't do either. We could see her pacing around her kitchen, and then we started hearing everything. At first it was boring stuff, something about her husband needing to pick up groceries and her car making weird noises, but then her voice changed. She started crying, not just regular crying, like sobbing. Her voice was all shaky and she kept saying things like, "They're going to take everything if the lawyer doesn't call back," and "I can't keep pretending everything's fine for these kids." The class chat started blowing up. People were typing, is she okay? And should we tell her? But nobody wanted to interrupt because it felt too personal. Then it got way worse. A man's voice joined the conversation, but it definitely wasn't her husband. We'd met Mr. Denson during parent night, and this guy sounded completely different, younger, and he wasn't comforting her like a friend would. He was saying things like, "You should have left him years ago, baby," and "I wish you were here with me instead of wasting time with those brats." When he said brats, we all knew he meant us. The chat completely exploded. Everyone was typing variations of "oh my god" and "is she seriously cheating?" and "this is insane." Some kids started screen recording, but then came the part that made everything so much worse. The guy said, "So did you tell them yet? About you leaving and taking the money?" And she whispered back, "No, I'll do it next week. I'm waiting until after the court hearing on Friday." 23 high school students sat there in complete shock, all muted, watching our teacher plan what sounded like divorce fraud, while she thought nobody could hear. This wasn't just some drama. This woman was literally plotting to steal money and run off with some other guy. She came back to the camera about 10 minutes later. Her eyes were all red and puffy, and her face was blotchy from crying. She sat down and started talking about the Boston Tea Party again like nothing happened. But then she looked at her screen and saw the chat. It was full of messages like, "Mrs. D, your mic was on," and "we heard everything," and "are you okay?" Her face went completely white. She stared at the screen for what felt like forever, then just closed her laptop without saying a word. She never showed up to class again. Not that week, not the week after. The school said she had a family emergency and brought in a substitute for the rest of the semester. But we all knew what really happened. The craziest part? 2 weeks later, Mr. Denson showed up to pick up her stuff from the classroom. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. When one of the kids asked where Mrs. Denson was, he just shook his head and said, "She's gone," before walking away with a box of her things. We never found out what happened with the court case or if she actually took the money. But Sarah from our class said her mom worked at the bank and heard that Mrs. Denson cleaned out their joint savings account the day after our Zoom call.